Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's going to be talking about the new album 10 by Westside Gunn. Before I do that, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent. I'm going to provide a small essay on white supremacy and black music. If you don't want to hear that, I understand. You just want to get to the review of this wonderful album, this great summation of Westside Gunn's work. Please skip to the timestamp that will be at the very top of the description of this video, okay? I'm not making anybody watch these thoughts that I have right here, but there's something I really want to say. So here we go. This album is called 10, or X. I believe we're supposed to call it 10. And it is the 10th in the series of Hitler Wears Hermes. Hitler Wears Hermes. Now the title got changed, and Westside Gunn has said that he was trying to get away from the title for a while. He only chose the name Hitler because it was equivalent to The Devil Wears Prada. He was never intending to promote Hitler, but it was an interesting sort of idea, it was provocative, and so he would have covers like the one you see here with the three-eyed Hitler. So he changed it, right? It's now just called 10, and it makes sense for the mainstream, which he is trying to go mainstream, and I hope he has success, by taking away the name Hitler. But I don't believe it. I really think that we are currently seeing a result of the recent question of anti-Semitism amongst black celebrities, in particular Ye and Kyrie Irving. Now, I already made a video about Ye and why we shouldn't be talking about Ye's views, and I'm going to be talking about that as well. But really, what I want to do is focus on what's actually happening. We must combat anti-Semitism in all of its forms. We must decry anybody with a public platform who spreads anti-Semitism, including black celebrities like Kyrie Irving and the artist formerly known as Kanye West. But that's not what's actually happening here. We are taking our eye off of the real villain. The real villain here is not anti-Semites. It is white supremacists. In our noble desire to fight anti-Semitism, we have actually played into the hands of white supremacists. How? Let me explain. You see, racists, white supremacists, love to use any kind of racism towards non-whites to hurt Jewish people. And they like to use any anti-Semitism to hurt non-whites. In particular, there is what I call the main strategy. And let's see if you can see that there. To promote any conspiracy that implies Jewish manipulation of non-whites to hurt the white race. This has been going on for centuries. Okay? Using non-whites and Jews as being in some sort of collusion to hurt the white race. This has a long history. A lot of it started in France. I am a French professor, and sadly, much of modern anti-Semitism has its roots in French pseudo-intellectuals. But let's start with the big guy. Let's start with Hitler. Let's start with Hitler and jazz. Let's talk about the original sort of pop music to make a global impact from African Americans. Let's talk about jazz music. How was jazz music understood in the 40s? How did Hitler conceive of jazz? Well, he had a particular word for that kind of music. He called it degenerate music. Now, these are actually from a slide from a class that I teach, and I have to warn you, there's going to be some shocking racist propaganda ahead. I do not support this propaganda in any way, but it is instructive to tell us where the white supremacist gets his power. He gets his power from conspiracies, which he promotes that implies Jewish manipulations of non-whites. We're going to see this over and over and over and over and over again. This is how Hitler depicted jazz. Entartete Musik, degenerate music. Look at this horrible image. It's hard to. I don't like looking at this image. But it's essential to understand the iconography of white supremacy. This is the truth. This is how white supremacists are acting and behaving right now. This is Tucker Carlson's chyron that goes underneath his face when he talks. This is what Lauren Boebert has on her campaign posters, okay? This is the truth right here. And this is what we need to fight. This concept, and this was firmly held and firmly distributed throughout the entire Third Reich and Nazi-controlled areas that jazz was a part of a Jewish conspiracy to destroy white culture and white people. Matter of fact, this is a little quote that I share from a pro-Nazi youth magazine during the occupation in which they referred to Judeo N-word rhythms and swing. Judeo N-word. This was like a term that they just used and threw around all the time because for white supremacists, it is somewhat transferable. You know, it's wild, you know. I mean, obviously, throughout history, Jews have been the universal scapegoats. Before World War I, French white supremacists talked about how the Germans and the Jews were always working together. But what form does it take now? It takes the form of the Great Replacement. So, again, we got to blame the French. Some guy named Camus, a couple decades ago, really put voice to the idea of the Great Replacement, which you have heard in many different ways. Now, fascinatingly, the Great Replacement, as it is talked about in France, isn't even really about... Their theory is that immigration patterns are being changed and that there are an increase of Muslims who are there to take over the French race and take over French culture and French society. Okay? In modern day France, it is hip-hop and it is Muslims who are playing the saxophone. But always, all great conspiracy theories, without fail, in all white supremacist circles, always, 100% of the time, with zero variation, ever, goes back to conspiracies about the Jewish people. Always. So, when the Great Replacement theory, which, by the way, Hitler had a Great Replacement theory. Everyone's had a Great Replacement theory. It's nothing new. But it manifests itself differently in different countries. And in America, it's often posed as, oh, it's an immigration policy, which is allowing more Democratic voters who will be immigrants. And it's trying to, and they use a lot of dog whistles, and they put it gently, and they put it one way, and they put it the other, but they always make sure to use the word replacement, and the people who listen know. Why is the enemy white supremacy and not just anti-Semitism or racist individually? Well, let's give an example. You see this? This is from Charlottesville. That's a statue of Robert E. Lee, a statue that was put up to intimidate and scare the African Americans in post-Civil War South. Okay? It's to celebrate the Confederacy and to reinforce the idea that slavery is a good idea. So what happens? What happens when it is decided that the alt-right, the white supremacists, call them what they are, the white supremacists, march on Charlottesville to save the symbol of slavery? What do they chant? Do they chant up with Lee? Do they chant protect our freedoms? Do they chant down with black people? They chant Jews will not replace us. It's all the same thing. It's that same image with the saxophone and the Star of David. What about Buffalo? You know, I mean, this is a thin excuse to go on this review of Westside Gunn. But hey, the massacre in Buffalo was this year. The massacre at Tops Markets. Now I live in Western New York, and I don't go to Tops. It's not the best supermarket. I prefer Wegmans. It's a local thing. But you have 10 people shot here. And the 10 people who were murdered here were all black. And why were they murdered? They were murdered because the person who committed this murder believed in the Great Replacement. He believed that Jews were trying to exterminate the white race. And who does he shoot? African Americans. So, what do we have? We have racist sculptures being taken down, attacking the Jews. We have Jews being attacked by murdering black people. Do you understand how the common denominator of all of this is white supremacy? Now, what does this have to do with Kyrie Irving? What does this have to do with Kanye West? What does this have to do with Hitler wears Hermes 10? Well, it's about power, you idiots. Who has power? Who has real power? Not celebrity power, not money power, real power. People like Tucker Carlson have real power. He openly supports the Great Replacement theory, and he winkingly supports it in both ways. He has 3 million viewers a night. How many advertisers does he have? How many times has he been deplatformed? He is indirectly responsible for the Buffalo Massacre. We know this. And yet, he is free to work. He is free to speak. And liberals like me and white liberals say, oh, it's terrible that he's that way, but... And then liberals like me focus so hard on black celebrities and make sure that Kyrie Irving never plays another game of basketball again in his life. This guy is the guy who we think is a threat. This guy who's a goddamn flat earther. Okay? He's not the guy that we need to be worried about. He can't even play in Toronto because he's an anti-vaxxer. He is 5 different kinds of stupid, okay? And there's no defending him supporting anti-Semitic things. I'm not supporting him at all. That's fine. What makes me angry is the nature of the discourse. The way that all of us, especially white liberals, pile on to easier targets when they happen to be black celebrities. Why have we ever taken our foot off of the pedal for deplatforming Tucker Carlson? Why? How is that possible? How is it that we watch this interview with Tucker Carlson and Ye, and Tucker Carlson leaves in the parts about the Jewish conspiracy, but takes out the part where Ye says that he has fake children planted in his house, where Tucker Carlson is picking and choosing to make sure that his views can be said through somebody else, while removing the things that will make him seem crazy? Why did Adidas cut Ye before, I don't know, Campbell's Soup? I don't even know who advertises with Tucker Carlson. The fact that any company does is a sign that white supremacy is alive and kicking. It's about real power. Real power. Not fake black celebrity power, which as we know can be taken away at any time. And it's not a Jewish conspiracy. It's a white supremacist society. That's what's doing it. And part of what we do is we just had an election. Isn't it great that the worst didn't possibly happen? The worst didn't possibly happen. Unless, of course, maybe you're Jewish or you're non-white. If you're Jewish and non-white, it's still not good for you right now. J.D. Vance, senator in Ohio, quote, "You're talking about a shift in democratic makeup of this country. What would mean we'd never win, meaning Republicans would never win a national election in this country ever again." Message loud and clear to racists, anti-Semites. They understand. Ron Johnson, elected to Senate in Wisconsin. The administration wants complete open borders, and you have to ask yourself, why? Is it really they want to remake the demographics of America to make sure they stay in power forever? Subtext, in order to make sure that our country is safe and, parentheses, white, we must exterminate non-whites who are being allowed into our country so we can maintain power. This is the subtext. I use the word exterminate because that's the actual stakes. Lauren Boebert, who I guess we should clap because she almost... I'm turning into Cody Johnson with the map behind me. Anyways, I just realized that. Hi, Warrenbo. Warrenbo doesn't like this. Lauren Boebert, we should be happy. She almost won, but she didn't win. This is what she said, representative from Colorado. There is definitely a replacement theory that's going on right now. We are killing American jobs and bringing in illegal aliens from all over the world to replace them. If Americans will not comply the tyrannical orders that are coming down from the White House, there is a grand conspiracy. Or, also in the Congress, Matt Gaetz, who won. There is an attempted cultural genocide going on in America. Cultural genocide. Cultural genocide. He said these words. Matt Gaetz is the guy who said these words, and this guy just got elected. And we're sitting here wondering if Kyrie Irving should play for the Sacramento Kings or not, or the Brooklyn Nets, or whoever. There is an attempted cultural genocide, said the person who got elected 2 days ago, going on in America, and it calls for patriots to stand up and say America's a great country worthy of our pride and defense. Tucker Carlson is correct about the replacement theory. The Anti-Defamation League is a racist organization. I benefit directly from white supremacy. I have my entire life. The privileges that I enjoy in life, I know, partly or directly come from white supremacy. Okay? I am not saying I'm holier than anybody. What I'm saying is, I want it to stop. If you want it to stop, you really have to understand what's happening here. Where Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar both won, American is a nation with a border and a culture strengthened by common respect for uniquely Anglo-Saxon political traditions. That means white. History has shown that societal trust and political unity are threatened with foreign citizens. That means non-white are imported en masse into the country. That means great replacement. That means Jews will not replace us. That means shoot up the supermarket. That's what that means. So when we think about these mass shootings, what's the similarity? You know, the terrible in 2018 when 11 people were shot to death in a Squirrel Hill, in Pittsburgh, in the synagogue. What did the person believe they were doing? They believed they were saving the white race, stopping the Great Replacement. What did the person in Buffalo think they were doing? They were stopping the Great Replacement, stopping the Jews, stopping the non-whites. In 2019, the 21 people who were shot at the Walmart in the South, in Santa Fe, the same idea. All of these ideas are completely white supremacist. So I am making this video. I don't know who's going to watch. Maybe some people are just super annoyed, and that's okay. You know, I'm not a political scientist, okay? I'm not an expert on these things. There's a lot of things I don't know, and I'm totally open to being corrected in the comments, okay? But we really need to think about who the problem is in this photo. We really need to think about where do we spend our outrage, because of course, well, I personally think that Ye is 100% off of his meds. He's having a psychotic episode and he needs help. He needs to not be platformed or discussed in any way at all. But what it comes down to is white supremacy is the enemy. That's the enemy. And this image over here is still the image that we should have in our head for what is being fed to people. And the problem is, when Ye or Kyrie Irving or anyone else says something anti-Semitic, it's bad because it's anti-Semitic. But it's also what leads to this. It's also pro-white supremacist. So, all this goes back to the question of should Westside Gunn have called this album Hitler Wears Hermes 10? Of course he should. Of course. Why not? It's provocative, whatever. He's not an anti-Semite. He's just using the name. He is not a part of the power structure that uses Nazi imagery or Nazi beliefs to oppress other people. All right? That's how I'm tying it all together. So let's get to the album, huh? I'll stop with all this stuff here. See East Side Flip over here. Move on to the review. Close this up. Kind of exciting video. Cody Johnston's shout out for all you guys who like Cody Johnston. So what do I think of this album? Get rid of that. I think it's great. I didn't think I was going to like anything as much as I liked Hitler Wears Hermes 8. I thought that side B was not as good. I just didn't like it that much. I think I might like this as much as 8. It's great because it's a great mixture of 8 and 9. By that I mean it's got a lot of high-profile guest rappers that sort of raise the way it's perceived value. You know, like guest producers, guest rappers, and you're like, wow, they're rapping with Westside. Wow, they're producing for Westside. But there's also enough of the tried and true Griselda stable underground rappers, underground producers to make it good. It's a great mixture of those. You know, and it's funny because, I mean, in reality, I saw the RZA was on there. I saw Swizz Beatz was on there. You know, two of the greatest to ever do it. But I was more excited to hear what is Conductor Williams doing than what are they doing. And that's just a really good sign of how healthy underground hip-hop is right now. There's a lot of posse cuts. So a lot of this album feels kind of celebratory. It feels like it's, I guess, the end of this era, and everyone's kind of jumping on and hopping off. There's sort of a lightheartedness to this album. Maybe that's another reason they took off the name Hitler. What do I know? Please smash the like bucket and subscribe if you haven't. You know, maybe you're still mad about that opening essay. I hope you're not. I mean, I think if you're mad about the opening essay, it means maybe we don't agree as much as as you think we do, like as people, you know. Because one thing I am, it's super duper anti-white supremacist. Controversial, but there you go. I think what I like about this album too is that Stove God cooks. So, I just reviewed the 21 Savage and Drake album. And one of the things I said, and it turns out everyone else agrees, is that 21 Savage isn't really on that this much. I think Stove God Cooks is on this album more than 21 Savage 21 was on that album. It's just he's all over the place and he's great and he forms this wonderful pair. I did listen to this album a lot, especially this morning with my baby, who's like 3 months old. And my hope is that her first word is either going to be "ayo" or "conductor." that's my new hope. And also, she really likes it when I go like try that with a baby, like boo 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 boo, like booping her on the nose. It's very fun. It's a fun album. So I'm going to give you my stamp, my example song. To hear that, just click above Egypt, I guess, for the song BDP. I think this is the best example song of the album, produced by Conductor Williams, who I love quite a bit. My son, his senior quote is, "Conductor, we have a problem." What can you do? My son's cooler than I am. Except he translated it into Serbian. "Konduktoru, imamo problem." Funny guy. And it's featuring Rome Streets and Stove God Cooks. And this is a reminder of like why I liked side A more than side B, why I like Hitler vs. Hermes 8 more than 9, because I actually don't need the splashy guest appearances. I don't mind them. But this has got maybe the best Conductor beat. It's all mixed up and cut up. It actually reminds me of a De La Soul beat, like one of the Prince Paul beats, from the early days where you have this sort of like up and down sound, almost childish with the crackle of the vinyl. That's an element. Rome Streets is just great. I managed to score one of his albums off Dope last week. You have to like get there really early, and I'm looking really forward to it. I'm God's favorite when I spit the bar raises before I got my start selling hard drugs to Caucasians. We're good kids, catch bids, and turn into incarcerated Scarfaces. Incarcerated Scarfaces is one of my favorite Wu songs. I realized I didn't want to look it up before I came on here. So like I think that's off of Iron Man. I'm not even sure, or was it off of Only Built for Cuban Links? Hip-hop fans are going to be super pissed at me because I'm a big Wu fan. But I just had all their stuff on cassette, and I just would just throw it in. And I didn't pay attention. I didn't have like the album covers or whatever. I just made dubs. Bozo did the dub. I did the dub. And so I don't even know exactly what album Incarcerated Scarface is off of. But I think it's the best example of the Ghost and Ray and just their interchange. I think that really is intentional here for this song. And for this whole album, actually. Pure Poison in your playlist. I'm like a dark skinned Michael Jackson moonwalking on stages. And just really just his... Something about Rome Street's brightness. There's like a brightness to, like a crispness to his rhyming. I really enjoy. I like it more and more the more I listen to it. And then also I like how Conductor is just building on, because he uses Thriller all the time. The video where Michael Jackson runs out of gas with his girlfriend. Kind of creepy. But now he's incorporating the Vincent Price laugh from the middle of it. Which for an old school hip hop head, all I can think about is The Dragon by Biz Markie, who sampled that. But anyways. And then it leads directly into Westside Gunn, who's just the whole time. Westside Gunn doesn't have a bad verse on this album. He doesn't even, like, it's not even particularly boring. Like one issue with Westside Gunn is sometimes just a little too much, like, okay, we get it, you sell dope and you don't sell dope, or you do sell dope or whatever. You got a lot of fancy stuff. I don't know, there's something about this album, he just seems, maybe it's because he's not on it too much. He lets the guest appearances do a lot. My 40 got a big nose like BDP. Great album. Which is funny because... KRS-One, has a big nose, so that's the joke, and the 40 caliber, I suppose, is the gun, has a big nose. But what I like is in the background, the ad-lib becomes kind of like a Jamaican reggae ad-lib, which is the kind of ad-libs or the kind of sound that Boogie Down Productions would actually integrate. So it's kind of a fun, back and forth with hip-hop history. Murder Bravado, the plug said no hablo, I looked across, seen at least 1,000 bricks, alhamdulillah. So he like quotes, God is great in Arabic and rhymes that with no hablo. So he's like rhyming a Spanish word with an Arabic sentence. And then out of nowhere, This Is How We Do It by Montel Jordan comes on, and then Stove God Cooks comes on, and just again, I've said it a couple times now. Every time Stove God Cooks is on a song, I'm happy. He is the underground hip hop. He's the underground rap version of Ty Dolla $ign. If I see him on there, I know it's going to be good. Brought the work back on his niece, had it wrapped around her legs like LeBron, icing his knees. Just very evocative, you know. He does a lot of crack stuff, but there's something about the way he's light about it, like he's joking about it. He's like the Joker of the crack rap game. Not like the Joker, like Why So Serious, but like the funny guy, the jester, the crack jester. I'm sorry, I just came up with that, and I'm a little bit too proud of myself. Stove God Cooks, the crack jester. I just wish someone would tell me if I should ever review Reasonable Drought. No one's ever mentioned it in a comment. Okay, I'm going to go through the rest of the album a little bit quicker here. Starts off with the intro, produced by the RZA, which is just weird. It's weird and it's awesome. Hearing the RZA produce for Westside Gunn is like, you know, like the ultimate inspiration, producing for the person that he, you know, it's a weird sort of symbiotic relationship between them. And then we have A.A. Rashid. And I follow a little bit, like I'm on the Reddit for Griselda. It's a fun Reddit. Kind of nerdy, but I think most Griselda fans are nerds. It's okay, you can be mad at me. Wow, I just really alienated a lot of people. Not you though. You're not a nerd. It's the other guys. You know who I'm talking about. But a lot of people are clowning on A.A. Rashid because a lot of the stuff he's saying is... So his thing is he's a hype man, but he's the thinking man's hype man. And he comes up with all these complicated ways to say things. Like where the Enlightenment is the contradistinction to the Renaissance. You know, like he says things a little bit too complicated. But I think it's good. I think it's fine. I think it's the natural end to what he's trying to do. I think it's hard doing what he's doing. I think he's improvising a lot of it. And I think he's just a little bit... It's funny because my son just applied to a bunch of colleges and his essay... He's a very good writer, but he was nervous. And so his first draft of his essay was just like, dude, what are you doing? It was all like this. It was all like, what is for the wheretofore I am? It is not within itself a distinction of contradiction. However, it is, without a doubt, the most indubitable of all my aspirations. It's kind of like that. I don't know. But A. Rashid is a real gift to the Griselda crew. And this leads right into the next song, Fly God Jr., which again, if you follow the online discourse with the super cool dudes who are on the Griselda Reddit, none of them are nerds, all of them are cool. Like me, I'm not a nerd, I'm cool. I'm straight from the mother effing streets of suburban New York. It's produced by his son, Fly God Jr. And I guess people are clowning on it because it doesn't sound like a Griselda song. Hey, what's wrong with you people? Have you heard this beat? It's awesome. Okay, it's not boom bap. Sorry, I keep hitting my music stand over here. It's not, you know, boom bap conductor style, but it's different style. It doesn't sound like Derringer. It sounds like a more contemporary rap beat. But it's good. I like the bass on here. I like the drums on here. And moreover, let's have this kind of nepotism. This is good. Okay? Remember I was talking about white supremacy? You see, part of the way that white supremacy works, the way that's benefited me the most, is that whole generational wealth and leg upness, you know? Like I got into college I got into because my grandmother went there. And when my grandmother went there, non-white people were not allowed. It wasn't official, but it was unofficial. We all sort of understand how it works, okay? So of all the millions of ways I've benefited from white supremacy, that's just an easy one. An easy one, okay? So much of my life is determined by weird little advantages, which we call privileges, weird advantages, privileges of birth, which disproportionately feed the people in power. Okay? So, I'm all for Jaden Smith and Willow Smith. I'm all for Ice Cube's kid being in a Star Wars TV show. I'm all for it. You know? I mean, okay, so it's nepotism. But like... good, you know? I mean, you have to be good, you know? I mean, he has to produce well. He won't live long on the charts if he can't make popular beats. But I'm all in favor of this kind of nepotism because this kind of nepotism actually does fight white supremacy by giving privilege to those who are traditionally not privileged in our society. So, DJ Drama's on here. It's good to hear him as well. He's always fun on any appearance. I always wonder how much he gets paid. Cool kind of chorus with this echo. Doughboy is he really matches the voice, the sample really, I mean the beat really well. Then we get to Super Kick Party, and that's where you're reminded. Okay, you have the highest of the high with RZA, right? A non-contested top 3 producer of all time. Okay. If he's not number 1, he's number 2, and if he's not number 2, he's number 3. There's no way he's below number 3. That's how good RZA is, okay? And then we get all the way down here to Fly God Jr., who's like just a kid who's doing something because his dad's doing it. And then right there in the middle, you get Conductor Williams, and you're just reminded, oh, right, Conductor Williams. He's the best. Yeah, he outproduced the RZA. Yeah, of course he outproduced Fly God Jr., but he outproduced the RZA, too. And later, he outproduces Swizz Beatz. This cool, weird sound in the back, and this, it's so great. All these ad-libs with these echoes, kind of really weird line from Westside Gunn, dippity-doo-dah, your brain's on the pavement. That's a really good example of the lightness of this album. Of course, dippity-doo-dah comes from Song of the South, which is a horribly racist movie made by Disney, which made the great amusement ride Splash Mountain. That has to go too, but it's a bummer because that ride's really fun. So zippity doo dah comes from that, but it's dippity doo dah, but it's just kind of goofing around. And you're like dippity doo dah, your brain's on the pavement. That's the Westside Gunn style. Then we get Eastside Flip, who's the person on the album cover, who is apparently just some figure who's very well known in the east side of Buffalo for being, allegedly, from what I read and what I'm told, just sort of a panhandling crackhead who can also rap. I don't know if that's true. I have no idea. I don't live in Buffalo. I go there like 10 times a year, but I don't live there. Next song is Shootouts in Soho by Daniela Flair, another great Griselda stable guy. We have A$AP Rocky with like multiple different flows here. And then Stove God comes on with just the perfect Stove God. The gesture, the crack rap gesture. I can't answer the phone right now. I'm cooking dope. Which is really great. Next song is Peppa's, again by Conductor Williams. It's too bad. Most Def, Yasin Bey. Let's call him what his name is, not what his name was. Yasin Bey just starts right off. And he's just great. He's so comfortable with a beat that he sort of starts and stops and then gets into it and then kind of backs off. And core capability, Flacco facility, fly guy, do or die, Bed-Stuy, energy, Semper Fi, BEY. He just has all this ability. He's just a reminder of why he's so great. I will say that I've never listened to Black Star. Sorry. You just threw something at your phone. It's okay. It's my bad. When I first heard them, someone played them for me. They said, these guys are great. And I was like, it's too preachy. I just turned it off. So that's me being an idiot. I'm wrong. I need to go back. I'm sure they're great because, I like Yasin Bey. And everything I've heard from Talib Kweli is good as well. So I don't know. I just missed it. I missed it. It happens. And before you get too high and mighty, there's artists that you're missing right now that in 10 years, 20 years, you're going to be like, damn, that came out then? It's weird because it seems like he's sort of like throwing shade at like rappers who rap about selling drugs and being gangsters, which we have Westside Gunn showing up and basically being a guest appearance on his own track. He mentions the restaurant Carbone, which Drake mentioned as well. What I like is how the beat gets a little bit more warbled underneath him by Conductor Williams. And then there's some wrestling announcers because remember how I said, like Griselda fans are kind of nerds? Griselda's kind of nerds, Wu-Tang Clan were kind of nerds. Everyone's like, it's part of humanity, Like, why is it an insult? To call the RZA a nerd is totally fair. He's super into kung fu movies and playing chess, Like, that kind of passion and interest and drive is part of what makes artists great. So if Griselda are wrestling nerds, which it seems as they are, that's not an insult. That is a description. I'm a music nerd, a Star Wars nerd. Giving video essays, nerd. Next song is called Nigo Louie, produced by Elijah Hooks and Daniela Flair. cool kind of like glazy 70s beat. This has Westside Pootie, which is his daughter, and I've always been a little bit skeptical about like having his daughter come on and like flexing, because it seems like he's setting up his daughter to be like a bad person by like bragging about how rich she is. Because like when you're rich, but this kind of goes back to the other thing I was talking about, nepotism and about generational wealth, instead of generational wealth in addition to generational trauma, right? Get to have both. But in the end, though, I like it because it's not just her. It ends up being sort of back and forth with his daughter and him. And it's a family thing. So in the end, I think it's probably good. Like what I imagine, by the way, is that Westside Pootie is going to grow up and she's going to get to go to a good school, and she's going to learn enough about her school that she is going to be mad at her father for having her say all that stuff, and that, you know, she'll go and get the kind of education that her father was deprived of, and then that will allow her to be smart enough to sort of look down on some of the things that he does, while also appreciating the great things he did despite his circumstances. That's my prediction. What do I know? Will Westside Pootie run for president? She might. Then we get to BDP, and then we get to one of the posse cuts, Science Class, produced by Swizz Beatz. We used to be good friends a long time ago. What I love here is what Swizz Beatz is doing, where he keeps on bringing that little sample back in the middle of a verse, and it's best in the first verse with Busta Rhymes, who comes in and just starts saying, he sings it himself. Busta's just great on here, and he's the only one who actually understands the sample. Busta heard the beat. It's about we used to be friends, and his whole verse is about a broken friendship. Way to go, Mr. Rhymes. You did the assignment. Hey, you know what I did the other day? I played Scenario for my kids. But the problem was they wouldn't... We were having a conversation, having a nice time in our kitchen, you know. Like, have you ever seen how nice our kitchen is? Man, kitchen's awesome. Very lucky guy. So we're sitting there, we're talking. Hey, look at me flexing. We're sitting and we're talking, and we're listening to Scenario, and the Busta Rhymes verse comes on, and my son just keeps talking about the colleges he's applied to. I'm like, basically, like, shut up. He's going to say rah, 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 like a Dungeon Dragon. He's going to say rah, rah, like a Dungeon Dragon. But he just kept talking, so I'll have to have him listen to it again sometime. But it's funny thinking about the decades that have passed in between posse cuts. Then Raekwon the Chef comes on, and bizarrely enough, I think he actually has a better verse than Ghost. And if you know anything about me, you know I prefer Ghostface Killah. But Cherry Limphy, all stomach, big chains, posing out in Flatbush with 12 chickens and 2 good nosemen, sniffing like elephants, cannons on, looking frozen. Nikes with pipers, the reggae world brought explosions. Just like great, inscrutable, woo-style raps. And Ghostface Killah comes on, but... Ghostface Killah has like this mode he gets into where you're just like, whoa, buddy, come down. I shared this with my friend Brad, who I used to listen to. We got into Woo together. And he has a son too. And he's like, yeah, I don't think I can play it from Son Loves Hip Hop. But he's like, the stuff that's like way too misogynistic, I just can't ride with. And this is just like, whoa, take it easy. It's not even like necessarily misogynistic. It's not even like women are bad. It's just like very explicit sexual stuff. That's why I effed your B, homie, while you was out wildin', she was here. It's just, blah, you know, like, whoa, hold on there. And then we have Stove God Cooks, and Westside Gunn going back and forth with each other. And this is not a coincidence. They are making the argument, successfully, that they are the new Ray and Ghost, at least on this album. And Stove God rhymes the word stance with Tony Danza. God is Love is another great track. Conductor's back here. He's sort of having fun. This weird sample of something All Is Love. It's a much lighter sample. It doesn't hit super hard. Este Nac has, I guess he's from the Dominican Republic, so it's quite nice because he mixes in Spanish and English. I keep pushing those O's of perico. Perico is Spanish slang for cocaine. It means parrot because apparently when you sniff cocaine, you just sound like a parrot. Or you sound like Ghostface on the last verse. Bah! We fish! I know, dude. Maybe less fish and... Okay. I don't care how crusty your left hand is. I tap the jumper like it's a Dominican dembo, bro, joking. I don't know what this is, except dembo is the rhythm that is the basis of reggaeton. That comes from Shabba Ranks, dembo, but the dembo itself is a weird, actual conspiracy song. It is. Dembo is a song about how white colonizers are trying to force homosexuality onto Caribbean men. I didn't make that up. That's true. So maybe that's why he's saying joking. I don't really know what he's saying. Stove God comes on and he gets a little serious. The crack jester gets a little bit serious. I left my soul in the kitchen, in my sanity. The flip phone to 100. End my sanity. So saying that, he lost his soul. Keisha Plum comes on. I wish she had a little bit more to say. Keisha Plum and A. Rashid are the two spoken word people who pop up on Griselda projects, and I would like to have them have a little more space. Another return of East Side Flip. And then we get to Switches on Everything, produced by Mike Shabo. Another posse cut, the second posse cut. And not only is this the best posse cut on the album, yes, I am including the final track, Red Death. You can get mad at me. You can post in the comments. You can say, clown, bro. Put a little clown emoji and a little bro fist, whatever, and to call me a clown bro. You can call me all kinds of clown bros, but this beat, it might be the best beat on the album. Even with all those great conductor beats, I don't know what's going on here. It's not grimy at all. It has stops and starts. It's just a really killer beat, and it's sort of a left turn, and it helps this whole album to not sound, and this is a thing that happens, especially when I listen to as much Griselda product as they make, because I promised you that I would keep reviewing it until they release something that was not good, and everything they do is good. That Armani Caesar video, which got like 500 views, what the hell's wrong with you, by the way? Why aren't you watching that video? It's a good review. Anyways, like, everything they do is good, so I'm a man of my word. But this beat is really great because you don't get that kind of Griselda fatigue of the boom bap and the bap boom and the grimy this and the LaFleur conductor, sort of Derringer sort of soundscape. This takes you into a different soundscape, which isn't better, but it's different. And let's just say it, Run the Jewels, they kill it. Just El Producto absolutely kills it. Spray these crumbs with the dirty pen work. Put the snub on every beat. Every clause is a non-compete. It's the law. You eat my cleats. I don't haggle with you sentient meats. I keep it brief. I don't give a F if I get flowers. I'm still laying down these wreaths. Dude, man, that is great. He's such a good rapper. It is, and people have accused me of reverse racism for giving white rappers less credit because I'm white and I assume that their experience is different or whatever. Not. This verse is actually about the difficulty he had growing up, sort of why he needed hip hop as much as anyone else does. But this might be the best guest verse on the album. So there I am, white privilege coming back again. But this verse, I don't haggle with you sentient meats. That is like the funniest line. Killer Mike is on here, super strong, very fast flow here. Jewel Runner running with the gun. All of us run with our guns, hands in the air, and I keep them up there. Everyone run all they funds. It's just great. And just the whole time the chorus is just Westside Gunn and he's singing and he's in this great mode where he's just appearing, and that's his thing. He's a behind the scenes guy who's sometimes in front of the scenes and he's just adding a little flavor here. Stove God has this interesting verse about being Jesus. It's funny and cool. Mac Don't Stop is finally a song that's again just Westside Gunn, just himself, produced by Pete Rock. Another kind of outstanding beat, the 70s soundtrack, horns. And again, he talks about keeping broke N-words away from him, which is also in conversation with Drake as well. Drake also does not want to be around broke people, which I think this is a bad turn. I think that the turn towards exclusively rapping about how good it is to be rich was not great. But staying away from poor people is very, very close to the Andrew Tate, manosphere, toxic, not just toxic masculinity, but like the cult of wealth. The prosperity gospel, it's a little too close to that stuff. And the album ends with Red Death, which is probably the third best posse cut on this album. You just threw something at the camera again. The Alchemist produces it. It's a great beat. somehow he's able to keep this long song together, this descending harpsichord with a drum fill at the end. And then, DJ Drama kind of jumps in between the first verse. Benny the Butcher has a great verse. Benny the Butcher has the first verse, and Conway has the last verse, and they both are back. I've been a little bit disappointed with the last couple of verses that I've heard them guesting on, but here it's great. Benny says, "Never switch it up," but I'm like they say I never switch it up. I'm like 3 flows in on this verse. Make sure you sleep with that machine gun like Megan Fox. Funny. Westside Gunn is cool, and he's side by side with Still Have Got Cooks, again, giving that Raekwon and Ghostface feeling. Stove God asks, they asking who's the best. I'm like, it may be us. I like that, the humility involved there. And then we have this weird sort of, not really a chorus, but like these weird ooh sounds by someone named Robbie Takats. And then like it breaks up. So like this is a big posse cut, very, very long. And you need all these little variations with drums coming out, ooh sounds. Rome Streets is just great. He says he has more tracks than Hitler 8. Very funny, very on brand for the people listening. Rome Street, and then Armani Caesar comes on, great cadence. She like goes fast and slows down. Jay Worthy is very strong, although I don't know how he jumped on this track, but that's fine. And that's the end of the album. So there you go. There's my video. These are my Patreons. Right over here. And I'm nervous. I am. Whenever I talk about political stuff, I always get a fair amount of pushback. So I'm thinking of not even releasing that first part. But I think I am. Because I think it's important to fight white supremacy. And if you listen to me and you think that like white supremacy is bad, and maybe you didn't draw the connections between the way that both media and people in general are attacking black celebrities instead of the people who have real power, who are purporting, putting these ideas forward, maybe I'll help you better understand. Maybe I need to use my platform for different kinds of good. I don't know. Anyways, thank you to all these people. I'm getting too self-referential. This was my joke from earlier. This is my copy of 10 by Pearl Jam. I was going to make a joke this whole album as a recreation of 10 by Pearl Jam. I don't have my original copy because someone stole it. I lost the little card with the guy in the front. There's the camera.